Stuck where you are. You just came. It's like, I don't care. It's just, we're making something. It feels like you are tilted like this, folks, online. And I'm trying to make you not feel a little tilted like that, because otherwise you'll be watching the video like this. Doesn't it feel that way? I need to just get like a solid setup. I just don't have a solid setup. That's what I need. All right. So, good morning, folks online. Good morning, folks in person. So again, for those of you who just came in, this is your tea blend. All right, it's our Nourish. Because we are going to be making a hair treatment based on vinegar. So we're going to talk about the use of vinegar topically on the skin tissue. We can also use vinegar internally as one of the solvents that we use for medicine making. Today our primary solvent is water because we're making a tea. But vinegar makes a decent solvent for some things. It's going to be really beneficial for the skin for some things. And so we're going to play with that. And then I've got some plants that are kind of representative of the concepts that we want to apply when we're choosing herbs for this type of a formula. So if you folks online are watching and you don't have one of the herbs that we have here, that's fine. It's a representative of kind of a concept, and use whatever you have that's going to fit in there, right? So first we're going to talk about the use of vinegar as a solvent, right? So whenever we're making medicine with something, we need to understand the strengths and the limitations of that solvent. So the strength of water as a solvent to make our tea is that it is widely available, right? Really accessible for most people. Most people have a decent water supply available to them to make tea with. And you can extract a wide range of constituents, right? Water is the universal solvent. It extracts very many things. There are a lot of plant compounds. Good morning, Ren. Hi. There are a lot of plant compounds that aren't water soluble, and so if we make a water extract of them, we can't get them. Right, and so the other side of that solubility kind of spectrum is oil. Oil pulls out non-polar compounds, the things that really don't extract well in water will generally extract in water. Will generally extract in oil. And then all of our other solvents kind of exist along that spectrum of polarity, of solubility in water. And so vinegar, yes?
Could you quickly just go over polarity, topically?
No, only because we have, so basically when we're talking about polarity, it just means the more polar something is, the more soluble it is in water. Water is able to fully extract it. The less polar it is, the less likely it is to be able to extract it in water. And so we need a non-polar type solvent, and that's when we go to things like either a high proof alcohol, right, or oil. Something that's going to be able to bring that into solution, to hold those constituents, because a very non-polar compound like a resin, right? So the frankincense, the constituents in frankincense are very resinous. They're very, very non-polar. They don't extract well in water at all. So you really need to use high-proof alcohol or oil to extract those. You can boil frankincense for an hour, and you're not going to get a whole lot being pulled into that solution because it's just not going to be soluble there.
So oil is very non-polar?
Yes.
And water is very polar?
Yes. Water, yes. And so vinegar is basically, when we're using vinegar as a solvent, we're basically thinking about vinegar as water, because that's mostly what it is, right? So vinegar, at its most basic form, that's a little bit of a chemistry pun. At its most basic form, vinegar is acetic acid and water. If you have white vinegar, the distilled white vinegar is basically acetic acid and water. Where do we get acetic acid? It is a breakdown product of ethyl alcohol. So ethyl alcohol will break down into acetic acid. This is why wine turns into vinegar, right? So alcohols break down into acetic acid, and it's generally dilute in a water medium. And so if you look at white vinegar, generally the white vinegar that's available on the market is generally not a product of fermentation and distillation. Oftentimes it's just synthetic acetic acid added to water. Dilute down to about a 5%. 5% is the acidity concentration of most vinegar on the market. So they just dilute acetic acid to 5% in water and throw that in there. So usually when we're thinking of what vinegar to choose for our medicine making, we really don't want to use the white vinegars if we have a choice of it, because the difference between that and something like this, so this is the vinegar that we're using, this is not the jar for this is just an apple juice jar. I get vinegar in 5-gallon buckets, so this is just to pour it. But this is apple cider vinegar, and this is generally for most herbalists, when we're talking about use of vinegar as a solvent, generally we're thinking of this. It doesn't have to mean that. You can use coconut vinegars, and you can use pineapple vinegars, and you can use so many different types of vinegars. The concern with the vinegar, good morning, Des. We were just talking about acids and bases in your chemistry class today. Nice. What was I just saying? Oh, so the primary difference, if we're looking at choosing a vinegar as a solvent, the same concept applies to vinegar as applies to any of our other solvents. We want a solvent that is relatively empty of other stuff. It doesn't have a lot of other things going on in it. It's going to be hungry and able to pull stuff into itself. If it has a lot of stuff in it, then it's not going to be an effective solvent. So the most obvious version of this in vinegar land, it would be balsamic vinegar, right? Balsamic vinegar is delicious. It's beautiful. It would be lovely to kind of think about the flavor of balsamic vinegar in a finished product that you were taking in. But in terms of a solvent for extraction, for pulling stuff out of a plant and holding in solution, it's a horrible idea because it's full of stuff. It's all thick and black and sweet and just gorgeous, right? But it's not good as a medium to hold stuff. So vinegar, yes?
This oleation you were talking about, is that to do with the electron interchange?
It's just the solubility of the constituents, the constituents in the plants that we're looking at, and how well they're pulled into the solvent of choice that we're using. So some things are going to be very soluble in one solvent and poorly soluble in another solvent. So before we start making medicine, we kind of have to understand what solvent we're using and what things are going to be soluble in there. Right?
Well, I mean,
so that's what
microgranular, chemical level, does it have to do with the electron?
I don't know. Yeah. Let's see. So the apple cider vinegar is sort of middle of the road in terms of hunger and emptiness of the medium, because you can see it's got a lot of pigmentation, right? It's holding a lot of stuff. If we were just looking at the emptiness, the hungriness of the solvent, we would go to the white vinegar, right? That clean one. Technically, yes, but there is complexity there in terms of the other benefits that come with the use of apple cider vinegar. We're not just looking at this only as a solvent, we're also looking at this as a living food that has a lot of other benefits in it and constituents. And so that is something that we also have to think about when we're looking at choosing those solvents, right? We can look at what is the thing that is chemically the best, the hungriest solvent, and what are other benefits that we're getting from it. For me, I think the apple cider vinegar, the benefits of having all of the other trace elements and enzymes and organic acids and all of that in there outweigh the need for a more hungry solvent. That being said, check out coconut vinegar or rice vinegar. Rice vinegar is a much more pale vinegar, right? It doesn't have as much stuff going in it, so it is going to be a much better option. White wine vinegar is a really good option. Red wine vinegar isn't, right? Because what does red wine vinegar have in it already?
Alcohol.
It has some, well, the alcohol has been converted to acetic acid, so mostly it doesn't have alcohol. But what does it have?
Tannin?
It has, well, you're on the right track. It has anthocyanins. It has pigments, right? It's for the red wine. So yeah, from the grape skin, exactly. So it has those pigments in it. Those pigments are some of the benefits. Those are some of the nutrients we want to pull out of plants. But if it already has those nutrients in it, then it already has those nutrients in it. It's less of an effective solvent, right? But it already has anthocyanins in it. So yay, right? So you just kind of have to choose.
What do you look for in choosing a good apple cider vinegar?
So the standard vinegar on the market is going to be 5% acetic acid, and most recipes are kind of based on the assumption that you're going to have a 5% acid vinegar. If you make your own vinegar, lots of people are like in the fermentation craze and they're making their own vinegars at home. That's fine, but you don't know what the percentage of acid is in your finished product. Likewise, if you buy a vinegar from the apple farmer at the farmer's market who's making his own vinegar, awesome, so wonderful, but you don't know what the acidity is in that product. And so that only matters in terms of being able to replicate stuff going on, right?
Is it labeled usually when you buy it? It'll say the percentage?
No, well, it is often if you buy it off of the shelf, it's not going to be if it's homemade.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one thing, is just the assumption of 5% acid, and that is important because the percentage of acidity has everything to do with the preservative effect of the finished product. So pH, low pH, is one of the ways that we keep things fresh. We keep things with an extended shelf life. And so the more fresh stuff you're going to be putting in there, the weaker it's going to be, the lower the shelf life is, the possibility of other stuff growing in there is going to increase. Homemade vinegar works great. Good morning, Marcos. Yeah, homemade vinegar would work beautifully. Balsamic generally has too much stuff in it, but what about white balsamic? So white balsamic tastes to me like it's got more sugars in it, right? It's got that viscosity, which also would say to me that it wouldn't be that good as a solvent. But it would have less stuff in it than the dark balsamic vinegar, right? Good morning, Noheli. Let's see. Okay, so vinegar. So that's vinegar as a solvent, choosing your vinegar. What does vinegar pull out of plants? Why would we want to use vinegar as a solvent? So it is basically a water, right? So that's the big thing to remember, is that vinegar is a water. It's a water that is acidified. So that is the solvent that we're working with, is basically a low pH water. All right, and so when we drop down the pH, we will generally pull out a couple of different things. These are the things that generally are the reason that we use vinegar as a solvent. The primary one is minerals, right? We've talked about this a lot in class. Minerals like to pull out into a low pH medium, and so one of the ways to enhance extraction of minerals into your tea is to squeeze some lemon into it, or a way to enhance that mineral extraction from the bones in your bone broth is to put a spoonful of vinegar into your broth, and it's cooking and it's going to pull more minerals out, because minerals like to go into a low pH environment. So vinegar is a low pH environment. So if we're using vinegar as a solvent for plants that are high in minerals, we're going to be able to make a really lovely concentrated extract. And so I'm going to send around for you, just because it's so yummy. This is a vinegar. This is an oxymel. We're not making an oxymel today. Oxymels are for internal use. An oxymel is a combination of vinegar and honey as a solvent, right? So this is vinegar and honey as a solvent in here. There's no alcohol in here. And then it's got mineral-rich plants. So it's got nettles and horsetail and oat straw and burdock. And then it's got some hibiscus in it, which is why it's, deep red. And then vinegar and honey. So you can just take a little taste of that. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. And it's a great way of getting minerals, right? It's a great way of extracting plants into a medium to be used as a daily supplement, as a concentrated source of minerals from a wide range of plants, from all the different plants that are rich in minerals, right? Oh, y'all can't see right off there. I have the list of herbs in the tea that we're drinking today, and it's nettles and oat straw and red clover and horsetail, and it's a lot of the things that are in there, right? Yes.
So you mentioned this one has honey and vinegar.
Mm-hmm.
So, is honey like a low pH solvent?
It is, yes. And honey has its own qualities as a solvent and limitations as a solvent. But yeah, by adding it in there, mostly we're just changing kind of the flavor and the consistency. But honey is a solvent in and of itself also. Yeah. All right. So pulling minerals into solution is one of the reasons why we like to use vinegar. And that is one of the reasons also why vinegar-based solutions are really good to choose for rinses for the hair and the scalp, because we're providing a really high nutrient concentration, a high amount of minerals that are in this solution that we can apply to the scalp and give some concentrated nutrition on the scalp. In addition, when we acidify, so when we wash our hair, when we wash our skin, when we use a soap to clean our body, generally soaps are largely very alkaline. It's the nature of things that clean the skin, things that break surface tension of water to pull stuff off of the skin. They generally tend to be alkaline. Oftentimes they will be balanced. They'll be pH balanced, right, to modify. But particularly often, particularly if we're using like handmade products, they can be very alkaline, and that alkaline effect on the skin, on the scalp, on the hair, all of those tissues like to be slightly acidic, right? So on a pH scale, pH goes from 1 to 10. Low pH is acid, high pH is alkaline, right? And neutral is considered to be right about 7, and skin likes to be right about 5, right? That's the optimal pH of skin largely. So slightly acidic, and it gets to that level of acidity by action of the complex microbiome that exists on the surface of our skin, the excretions of those microbes that live on the surface of our skin. It's their excretions that make our skin slightly acidic and really happy and healthy. So when we wash the skin, and we're removing what's called the acid mantle. The acid mantle is that layer of acidity on the external surface of our skin. When we wash that off, we are exposing the skin to more irritation and reactivity to its environment. The skin is more irritated, it's more dry, it's more red. The oil glands generally tend to be more stimulated because the upper surface is dried out and inflamed, red, irritated. There's often a stimulation of oil production from the oil glands, and so we can have a kind of a duality of dry, rough, irritated, inflamed skin, and also too oily, right? Because of that change in pH. It doesn't actually have much to do with the oil itself. It's that we've shifted the acidity of the skin. So it takes anywhere from half an hour to a couple of hours to reestablish that acid mantle after we wash our skin, after we wash our hair. So what do we do during that time? One of the things that you can do is you can do a rinse with vinegar. Right? So a dilute vinegar solution applied to the skin, applied to the hair, is going to immediately drop that pH down to the pH level that the skin likes. That's going to make it really happy. It's very good for skin that is red and irritated and inflamed, especially chronically red, irritated, and inflamed. Trish, hi. Oh, well, balsamic. Yeah. What was I just saying? Diluted vinegar helps to, yes, yeah, so it reduces that irritation and redness and inflammation, all that. Remember your energetics. The taste of sour, the chemistry of sour, organic acids and flavonoids generally are sour things. Sour things stabilize tissues. They reduce heat signs in the skin, right? So we taste sour things, and we know that when we taste that something is sour, it's going to be cooling to our body. This is the type of thing that we mean, right? Organic acids in proper dilution, right? Undiluted acids are going to increase redness and heat, right? If we had a wound and we poured undiluted vinegar in that wound, that would be red and irritated and inflamed, right? Anything out of balance is going to be also out of balance. But acidity in proper dilution is very, very good for heat signs in the skin. So that's kind of what you want to think about for that pH. The other thing that for changing the pH, the other benefit of using vinegar on the hair is the effect on the hair itself, on the hair strand. So if we look at hair, right? So on the outer layer of the hair are what are called cuticles. And the cuticles lay flat, right? They lay flat like shingles on a house, right? And those of us with long hair have experienced those shingles coming apart and opening up, and you can get a split end and have a very satisfying split and have it go all the way up. When these shingles are not lying flat, this is what happens when the surface of the hair is alkaline. When the hair is alkaline, you get the cuticle of the hair becomes outward. And the effect of that has a couple of different effects. Number one, light shining on the surface is going to be reflected off, right? Because light reflects off of a flat surface, so the hair looks shinier. Light does not reflect off of this surface because it's a rough surface, so the hair is going to look more dull. The other thing is that this surface coming in contact with other hair is going to snarl and tangle. It's going to get matted much more easily.
So we're also talking about textural differences, really.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, absolutely, textural differences. Yeah. So when we do a quick rinse with vinegar, this is going to constrict this cuticle downward, and so you're going to get shinier hair. You're going to get less tangly hair. Are you going to be able to nourish the hair on your head by using a wash like this? No, because hair is dead. Everything outside of your scalp is all dead stuff, and you cannot rebuild this. You can seal it, you can coat it with stuff, you can do stuff to it, but you can't nourish it, you can't rebuild it. But we can rebuild by application to the scalp, right? So we can always start there. What is an appropriate acidity percentage? Will we cover how much do we use? Yes. Yeah, absolutely, Ren. So when we make a vinegar extract, right? If we're using vinegar for extraction of herbs, we're going to get into that right now. When we have our vinegar extract, or if you just want to use vinegar by itself, right? It doesn't have to be extracted in herbs. You can just use vinegar as a rinse for your hair, for your scalp. I like to dilute it in about a 1 to 4 dilution, right? 1 to 4-ish. And so that means that when I get in the shower, I will have a little jar. Hello, come here. I will have a little jar, and I'll fill that jar about 1/5 full with vinegar. and leave it on the side of the shower. And then when I'm done with my shower, I'll take that and I put it under the water and add water to fill it up, and that's going to be about a 1 to 4 dilution.
Okay.
Turn off the water, dump that on my head, and just let it rinse the whole body. All of the tissues of the body respond really well to that dilution. That's a proper dilution. That'll give you a really nice dilute solution. It will not irritate the skin. It doesn't feel, if there's open wounds, it doesn't irritate them. It'll still burn if it gets in your eyes. Don't get it in your eyes. But every other tissue in the body is like really happy with it. That dilution is also really good, by the way, with animals who have like hot spots, allergies in their skin. That type of dilution of vinegar is really, really great for again, heat signs in the skin, right? Hot, red, irritate the skin. Okay, so we are going to extract herbs into vinegar to make them to make a rinse for the hair. So I've got a couple of different classes of herbs for you to choose from, and we'll kind of go into why I chose those. Think of, as I'm talking about the plants, if it kind of speaks to you, we'll make a little note of that, and then that's going to help you to formulate when we're done. So the first one is rosemary. We have rosemary. Rosemary is often used in hair rinse formulas to stimulate circulation. Hi, Ophelia. To stimulate circulation, right? Rosemary is very warming, stimulates blood flow to the scalp. Okay.
Please, let me know what it is next time. It's a balance and the guy, and I don't want to kill him. But no, they tell me it's a weed. Can you smell it?
I will look. I love that you brought that in for me, Ophelia. I have no idea what it is. You just brought me a bundle of weeds and said, I don't know what this is. I'll look at that just a little bit. Okay, so stimulating circulation. Lots of other plants could fill in for this, right? This is one of them.
Yeah, I have a delivery for Julie.
Okay, hold on. Okay.
Yep. Can you just have him put it over by the greenhouse?
Okay.
Thank you, Ophelia. Okay, rosemary. The next one is, actually I'm gonna cross over. We have comfrey. Comfrey is very soothing and healing to the scalp. If there's scalp irritation, inflammation, dryness, comfrey is gonna be very soothing and restorative, stimulates new cell growth. It's very moistening. Lovely, lovely, lovely plant to use. This is for topical use. There are concerns with toxicity with comfrey. We're not going to go into that right now because we're not using the comfrey internally, and there are no issues of toxicity at all come from comfrey using it topically. There are concerns with putting it on open wounds, not applicable to this usage, but if you are concerned about toxicity of comfrey, that only comes from oral ingestion, and none of the issues of toxicity come from application to the skin.
Question about the rosemary.
Yes.
It's kind of oily, but it's also drying. Would it have that effect on the hair too?
Well, no, because it is oily, but you're not using an oil solvent, right? You're using vinegar, and so the oily factor of it is going to be somewhat limited by the fact that you've chosen basically a water extraction, right? Sage. So sage, another aromatic plant. Now sage is very drying, and so it's really good when we have hypersecretion of oil in our scalp. This would also be applicable to oily skin for the face too, because this same formula could be used as a facial or body rinse, right? This is for the whole body. But sage is appropriate when the body is secreting too many fluids. So when we're sweaty, when we're oily, sage helps to constrict those tissues and dry up those fluids. So very, very nice when there's just hypersecretion. It is also strongly antifungal, antimicrobial. It's sage, it smells lovely. Oh, good morning, Abahita. Do you rinse with water after the vinegar? No, I do not. So that dilution, when I dilute the vinegar and water solution, turn off the water, dump that on, and that's it. I do leave a residue of that on my scalp, on my face. In that dilution, you do not smell vinegar. I did it this morning, so if y'all want to like smell my hair, just have to make sure I don't smell like vinegar. Both of my sons would have been very happy to tell me if I stank of vinegar at any time during their lives, and they never have. So I trust teenage boys to let me know if I stink. Yeah, so at that dilution, it will smell vinegary when it's wet, but as soon as it dries, it's fine. Yeah, so that's the dilution. You can certainly rinse it off if you like, but we're reestablishing that acid mantle, and we want to put it on. We want to leave it there. So, sage for drying up secretions. Peppermint. So peppermint, with its menthol content, menthol is really good for itchy skin, for itchiness. So itchy scalp. Peppermint is a great thing to use for that. Anytime you have itchiness of the skin, itchiness of the itchiness is a factor of heat and irritation, right? The nerves are irritated. So oftentimes vinegar as a treatment to itchy skin can be really, really beneficial. If your skin is very, very itchy, it's one of the things you should try is a dilute vinegar or some type of acidic solution. Another thing that you try is peppermint. And so peppermint is really lovely for that. Horsetail. So horsetail is sort of a stand-in for all of the mineral-rich plants, right? So horsetail is kind of the queen of the show. And so if you don't have horsetail, you're going to use nettles or oat straw or alfalfa or whatever to get those minerals. Dandelion leaf would be wonderful. The horsetail, nettles, and oat straw are particularly beneficial. We've talked about them a couple of times this year. Why are they particularly beneficial in this application? Because what?
The high silica.
The high silica, yes, 10 points to you. Yes, because their high silica content, and silica is one of the primary minerals that we associate with hair strength. And so that's why you'll oftentimes see them. Horsetail is kind of the silica source plant that we think of, but it's by no means the only one. Nettles and oat straw are really wonderful for that. And then finally, I have red clover in there. Red clover is actually kind of an interesting one because red clover is a Fabaceae family plant, right? It's in the bean and pea family, and it has a very high amount of an isoflavone called formononentin. So formononentin is found in soy, but it's found in really high amounts in red clover. And the cool thing about formononentin in red clover is they found that topical application on the scalp stimulates hair growth, which is really, really cool. It's a phytoestrogen, right? It's a binder to hormone sites. Does it work because it's blocking testosterone activation or testosterone inhibition of hair follicle growth? Could be. We don't really know why, but we do know that red clover applied topically can be very beneficial. Don't know if the formononentin in red clover specifically is soluble in vinegar. I don't know if anyone has done that study, but it's also got a lot of minerals in it, so why not use it? We'll throw it in there.
Is formononentin soluble in water?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. those are our kind of typifiers, the things that stimulate circulation, the things that calm and soothe the tissues, right? So you could substitute, what could you substitute if you didn't have comfrey for something that was soothing? Chamomile would be perfect, absolutely. What else?
Linden?
Linden, ooh, I love the idea of linden in there, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, calendula would be great there, plantain would be great there, right? Lots of just general soothing things. Sage is pretty much, it's very specific in its effects. So really, if you want sage, you can substitute or you can add to sage lemongrass. Lemongrass and sage both are plants that inhibit oil production, really good for oily skin and hair. Lemongrass, acidic things, here's an important part, and then we'll go into medicine making because time's a wasting. One of the limitations of the use of vinegar as a solvent is that while it loves extracting alkaline compounds like minerals into itself, it does not want to extract acidic compounds into itself. Because it's already acidic, it's fine with acids. And so sometimes you'll see people making like rosehip vinegar extracts as a vitamin C source. Well, they very specifically chose a solvent that won't extract the vitamin C because it's already got a whole bunch of acid in there. So had they chosen a bunch of other options, they may have gotten that vitamin C. But that, even though it's sour, it tastes, there's acids in there. There's absolutely a whole bunch of acids, but there's not that acid. So if you're looking for a constituent that is going to be extracted in the vinegar that is acidic in nature, then that's one that you'd want to kind of, you're not going to be getting that in there. Yeah. So I just wanted to point that out there. I've always learned something new every time I listen to, oh, well, you should like come down and visit me so I can talk to you some more. All right, so what you're gonna do is you are going to take your little jar. I've got jars. This is a soup recipe, right? You can be creative and fun with this. This is just a concept that you're playing with. So think of your formulas. Oh, I do have, if you also want to add to your formula, I have some essential oils. So we have tea tree, if you want to add a little bit of an antifungal property to it. We're only going to be using a couple of drops, maybe 5 or 6, up to 10 drops maybe of oils total in your blend here. And we can go up to 10 drops of oils in a small jar like this because it is going to be diluted. You're going to be using a small amount at a time, right? So otherwise that would be not nearly. Lavender, if you want an antifungal that doesn't smell like tea tree oil. Or calming, soothing. Rosemary, if you're increasing that kind of stimulation of circulation. And then peppermint, if you're increasing that menthol quality. So those we've got there. You've got pipettes here. Please use 1 pipette per bottle. Don't mix them up. Just leave one in the dropper bottle when you get it, and then they will be tossed out. So you're just going to grab herbs, throw them in here, and then fill it up pretty much to the top. All right? Don't fill it all the way because it is going to expand, and so you don't want a big plug of solid matter in there. It's not going to be extracting. If that happens, just when you get home, move it to a larger jar and then cover it with vinegar from there. Not a big deal if that happens. But do check for that. Check to make sure that the plant material can move around in the solution. And then you're going to be, now, after you make it, you're going to take it home. You're going to pay attention to it. You can like shake it every day and, take it out into the sunshine, right? A little bit of heat is going to enhance extraction of minerals. Get that solar energy if you want that. You can put it in the sun if you want, under the moon, if you want some lunar energy. You can do whatever you want with it. You should extract it relatively quickly. It is a vinegar, it is a living food, and as such it is, that means it is a dying food and it'll start going funky. But it'll stay for a long time because we're using all dried plants, we're not using fresh plants, and so we're not changing the pH of the finished product, right? We're talking about, this is one of the concerns of using it, of using vinegar as a solvent, is you don't want to be adding in too many things that are bringing water to the equation, right? We've made some fresh plant extracts this year. And the thing about those fresh plants is they are bringing that water and they're diluting it. But we've got dried plants and 5% acidity vinegar. This is going to make a really shelf-stable formula. So you'll put them in there, let it sit for a couple of weeks if you want. If you want it ready tomorrow, you can put this into a water bath and bring it to a boil and let it simmer for about half an hour, and then let that cool down, and let it strain it tomorrow.
Can I put the whole jar into
The whole
water?
jar, yeah, just set it into a water bath, yeah. Because heat, you're increasing the heat of the vinegar makes it a really, really effective solvent. It's going to pull all those minerals out really, really quickly. Everything that we're looking at here in terms of plant medicine is going to pull out really, really quickly. So if you want to do it overnight, that's a way to do it overnight. If you don't want to use any heat, you don't have to use heat. We are using living, raw apple cider vinegar, and so your apple cider vinegar will not be raw anymore if you heat it too much. Right? Is that important to you? Well, you tell me. But that is a factor. So that's one thing you want to be aware of. Any questions about any of this?
Can you say the heat bath or the water bath again?
Yes, you're going to, sorry, yes, I did go over that quickly. So you're gonna get a pot of water. Give me one of our pot of water. And you're gonna put this in your pot of water on the stove. Leave the top on. Right? And just have the water go up to the top. And just bring the water to a boil and let it simmer for about half an hour. And then turn it off. And then just let it cool down. Just leave it in there. You don't have to do it a couple of times. Sometimes if we're doing like oils, if we're really trying to increase extraction of something, we might do that a couple of times. I don't think it's necessary here. You've got a solvent that really likes what we're doing, and you've got some heat to increase that. You can also heat up your vinegar in a pot and just pour that over your herbs like you're making tea, right? And then just put the lid on and leave it in the container overnight, and in the morning strain that out. So you can do it that way too. If you heat vinegar, do be mindful that all these acids will come up in the steam, and if they get into your sinuses and they get into your eyes, it is very, very painful. So don't put your face over it. You definitely don't want to do a steam with the vinegar. But yeah, so was that a little bit more clear on what you're going to be doing?
Yes,
Perfect.
absolutely.
Great. All right. Any other questions? Did you have a
Same
question?
question.
Oh, great. Yes, leave it.
Would the common ratio of 1 to 5 apply to this?
Yes. So generally, that 1 to 5 ratio of herb to solvent is a really good one to use whenever you're using dried herbs, because generally that's enough to saturate your solvent. Here, we can use more than that because we're not making a clinical strength extraction. We're infusing herbs into vinegar to pour on our head, and so we don't have to be quite so careful about those ratios. But one of the reasons we use those ratios is because we don't want to waste herbs, right? And so if you had precious herbs, you wouldn't be so cavalier about it. You would say, no, I want to use the minimal amount that I can to get a full strength, but not waste them, because otherwise, after a certain point, you can throw more herbs, but they're just going to be wet. They won't be extracting, right? Because you've saturated that solvent. But these are weeds. We've got lots and lots and lots of nettle and oat straw and red clover and comfrey. Oh, we have so much comfrey. Right, so when we have plants that are abundant like this, we don't have to. But you can also, if you want to, like, work with your algebra skills, and you wanna do some algebra, I support you absolutely in applying your 1 to 5 ratios here, in doing your proper formulation techniques. Just also, this is another very good way of medicine making, is setting aside the ratios and setting aside the measurements and all of that, and just being organic and just throwing things into a jar and pouring some vinegar over them. Sometimes that's a perfectly great way of medicine making, and sometimes it isn't. And knowing when that is part of the complexity of learning medicine making. Yeah, great question. Yes.
So eventually, will we be straining this?
Eventually you'll be straining it. So after X amount of time, right, whatever X is, you're going to say, okay, now I want my vinegar out of there. And so you're going to take some cotton cloth. You can use cheesecloth. People always say use cheesecloth for straining your plants. I have cheesecloth mostly as a cautionary tale is what I use. I hate using cheesecloth for straining plants, primarily because it's this tiny little woven fabric that when you're straining plants out, you can use this to strain plants once. And after that once, you've got you can't rinse this out, you can't clean it. It's got plant stuff all stuck into it. And so it's very wasteful to use a brand new product once and then throw it out. That makes me mad. So you can use cheesecloth, but I don't suggest using cheesecloth. You can use just any type of cotton cloth. Cotton cloth. Wash it, make it clean. Put it into your strainer, put your herbs in there, bring it around, and then you're just gonna squeeze it all out. Right? Squeeze, 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 squeezy, squeezy, squeeze. Old t-shirts work really well. Yeah, you want it to be cotton. Yeah, that's fine. You can buy muslin cloth specifically made for this, but yeah, just use cloth, it doesn't matter. If we are making a vinegar extraction for personal use, would fresh herbs be better than dried? Is it stronger if it's fresh herbs? Ooh, abejita, no. Mostly. The thing about fresh plants is they're mostly water, right? Some fresh plants are like 80% water, super, super juicy, a lot of the spring plants right now. So we were talking about the dilution of the vinegar, right, with fresh plants, and so this would be a concern with that. The other thing is, a fresh plant, well, when we take a fresh plant, if y'all want to like get moving on this while I talk about this, they don't get to play. You all get to play. So you folks can you grab the bucket of spoons there, right? The big. There you go, and just set that aside. So same thing applies when a spoon goes into an herb. It just stays with that herb. The other thing about fresh plants. So when we dry a plant, right, we have a leaf. Here's a leaf, side view, and the leaf is made up of cells. Each cell has a cell wall, right? And it has a little nucleus in it, and it has a lot of little organelles, all sorts of stuff is going on inside the cell. And it's that inside the cell stuff that is primarily what we want, right? That's the goodies that are in there. So we need to get inside that cell to get that stuff out. Now, if we take this same fresh leaf and we dry it, right? We put it under, hi, Roseanne! If we dry it, then as we dry, the water evaporates off, and what happens is that these cell walls break. They become fractured in the drying process. And so, even if you have a whole leaf, it's fractured and dried, and so if we, oh, here's another, does everyone have a jar?
Do you mind if you grab Go-To-Cola?
Oh, no, yeah, go grab Go-To-Cola. Yeah. Oh, there you go, there you go. So in a dried leaf, then if we take this leaf and then we put vinegar on it, right? We put it into a jar and we put vinegar on it. The vinegar is able to get into these broken cell walls. It's able to move through these cell walls and in there and pull those constituents out, right? It's able to get into that cell wall. However, if we have a whole fresh plant, right? We have a fresh leaf and we put that into a jar of vinegar, to a certain extent, what we're gonna get is a leaf floating in vinegar because we haven't broken those cell walls. They're still intact, they're strong. They're really strong. They're meant to they're the structural component for the leaf. So if you do use fresh plants, what you want to do, what you want to remember is the more that you can break those cell walls, the better your extraction is going to be, right? So you want to use fresh plants, yes, but you need to chop them very finely or grind them. And you might want to wilt them for a day or so to drive off some of the water, or you can just make an extract and understand that the shelf stability is going to be shorter because the water content is going to be higher, the pH is going to be higher because the acidity is going to be lower, right? Those are two different ways of talking about the same thing, and that can be a little confusing. So let's go over that one more time. The pH drops down when the acidity goes up. So sometimes if we're talking about something that's very acidic, we can be thinking about something that's got high acidity, but the language we would be using is a low pH. That's really confusing for some people, so I just wanted to clarify that. I don't remember why I jumped over there, but yeah, so you'd have a leaf floating in water. So that's what you want to, so you want to think about what, oh, and by the way, if you're using an alcohol as an extract, alcohol and glycerin are both hygroscopic. They draw moisture to themselves. So even if you had a whole leaf in a jar, right? You didn't chop up your leaves to make your tincture. You put a whole leaf in there. The action, the hygroscopic action of alcohol means the alcohol would be pulling the constituents out of the cell wall. Even though the cell wall is entire, it's going to be pulling it out. It's going to be breaking that because that's the nature of alcohol, right? So it also depends on the solvent that you use. This is also why sometimes making a sun tea is a bad idea. It's a lovely idea to think about. I'm going to go and pick herbs and put them into a jar and put them out in my garden and leave them in the sun. But a lot of times all you have is wet plants floating in a jar full of lukewarm water, right? Because you didn't break those cell walls. It looks beautiful to have all those whole leaves floating and flowers floating in there, but what you're actually pulling out into that plant, into that water is limited because you did not break those cell walls, right? Now, one exception for that is aromatics, because in aromatics and when we're looking at essential oils in plants, and this is why flavorful things can be used in a like a solar tea. If we're looking at a peppermint leaf, we've got those cell walls there, but that's not so much what we're focused on. What we're focused on is on the top of the leaf, there are oil glands, and that's where the essential oil content is. It's not here in the cells. It's in these glands on top of the leaf structure, and it's going to extract pretty readily out of there. So that's why the chop up very finely doesn't necessarily apply to aromatic plants, and you can make solar teas out of aromatic plants, but you're still not going to get that wide chemistry, the wide-ranging chemistry of chopping up the whole leaf. All right, I think I've driven that into the ground enough. How are you folks doing in making your blends? You having fun?
So fun.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Blue tape is better than that tape. Sorry, let me give you the blue tape. Use the blue tape.
Do we all have dry skin? Because I didn't want to do sage because
My blue tape roll.
oily.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I have more dry skin.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
All right, so I'm just going to hang out with you folks. Although we're pretty much done.
Can you remind why Gotu-Kola is good for the skin?
So Gotu-Kola is one of the.
It's like, it's good.
It is good. Just shut up and use it. It's good.
Close, so I'll leave that.
Oh, thank you. Good to see you. You asked me.
Gotu-Kola.
Good. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So Gotu-Kola is one of the primary. Gotu-Kola would be a plant that you could certainly add into this formula. Gotu-Kola is one of the primary plants that we use for general dermatology. It's very healing to to damage skin tissue. So it is very much like calendula in that respect. It's something's wrong with your skin, throw some gotu kola on it and take gotu kola internally, and both of those are going to help to get new cells growing, reduce scar tissue formation, reduce inflammation, improve elasticity of the tissue. Yeah, it is very much just to shut up and just use it. It's good for you.
That's
It's
why.
good.
I don't remember, it's good,
That's all you need to remember. That's all you need to remember. Do you have any advice for cam yeast? Cam yeast, my vinegars tend to get it, especially horsetail vinegar. Oh, Des. Oh, hugs to you, Des. I miss you too. I need to go up north and just do a tour through wherever the hell you are right now, and then up into Oregon, because are your Monday classes in person open to the public? They're totally open to the public. Yeah. Come if you're near Long Beach, you can come and be here with everyone. Here, everyone is. Is it okay if I show everyone y'all playing? Okay. Yes. Everyone is playing and making their stuff. Say hi. Hi, everyone. Yeah. So you can come and hang out and be here in the class with us. If you want, absolutely. I don't know, Kam yeast, Abahita. If you would
I was thinking
email me or text me or leave a message in the text after this, because I don't know how to find this one. And I can look it up. I don't know about Kam yeast, so I'm unable to speak about it. But yeah, it sounds interesting. It sounds like a thing of concern. I still have this. Yeah, I don't know, but I will. I'll definitely look into it for you if you like. You just have to remind me. Oh, I know this. I know this. Oh. Smell it.
Is it California sagebrush?
No.
What is that? It smells
No, I know
familiar.
that.
Right?
It smells very
I've lived
familiar.
here.
Oh,
walking
yes,
around
yes.
hiking, I smell that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Can I
It
look
smells
at it
Yeah.
closely?
I don't know why she
It does
crumbled
smell
up.
good. You can't really see it very well.
Can anyone identify this? There's a whole one.
Oh yeah.
Noheli. Oh, I'm so glad. I'd love to have you. I live in Okie. Yeah, it's not that bad a drive.
It looks
It's not
almost
that
like
bad.
no.
Is it a parsley kind
That's
of
what I
thing?
was just thinking. It looks like
It's
parsley.
smell it, Con.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Oh, hi, Renee.
It is.
Okay, I'm gonna let y'all go.
smells like-
Yes, I live in moist environment, no Con yeast in Long Beach.
It is parsley.
Yeah.
It is, but it's
things that
definitely
are.
not parsley, but it's kind of like parsley.
But it might be in the parsley family.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
I'm gonna let you all go.
Okay.
Mwah. Love you. Not you folks. You can stay, but these folks.
They're all hearing us
I'll see you next week. All right. Bye bye. Burr Sherville. Oh yeah. Ooh. Des. I love you, Des. All right. See y'all later.
Was that more of the?
So Burr Sherville is the wild celery, wild celery.